So again, we've got another fantastic virtual field trip. This time we're back at the Intrepid Sierra and Space Museum. We're here in New York City, and we are ready to learn more, not just about the museum, about the Apollo program. We've got a cool exhibition by an MIT Media Lab up here. We're going to be talking with Noah Petro from NASA LRO. We've got a special guest, Mike Massimino, coming up as well at the end, near the end of the broadcast. But in the meantime, we're standing on the hangar deck of the Intrepid. Remember, Intrepid is actually an aircraft carrier that was converted into a museum. And y'all know the drill, yada, yada, yada. I like to surround myself with people who know more than me, who are smarter than me. I've got a special guest who's been on the show before. We've got Mike Murtagh.
Hi, Chat.
Hi, Chat. Look, he knows, Chat. He's on to you.
We're all friends.
We're all friends. Mike Murtagh is a senior tour guide / educator here at the museum. I can go with that, right?
Works for me.
We'll just go with both. And we are going to walk around some places, some parts of the museum that we haven't walked before. We're starting off on the hangar deck because it's air conditioned. Because it's hot outside.
It's the place to be today.
Yeah, it's the place to be today. But where are we going to try to walk today?
Well, we're going to look around at the hangar deck, talk a little bit about Intrepid's history. This is really where we present that more than anywhere else. We're going to try to head up into the anchor chain room, assuming that the connection holds.
Yep, we'll see.
Some areas that are restored historically. And hopefully we're going to see some anti-aircraft guns, see some of the firepower from the ship, and we'll go from there.
Cool. Excellent. So we have about an hour here with Mike, a little bit under an hour now. But take it away. Where do you want to go?
Well, first and foremost, let's just take a look, kind of a broad look at where we are right now. This big open space today is kind of our main exhibition space. But historically, the hangar deck was a garage for the planes. Pre-armed, fueled, repaired, kind of got them ready to go for combat.
Gotcha.
Now, there's not a lot that's left from that time period, but one thing to take note of, up above our heads, we were still in service. You can see spare wings and propellers hanging up from there as far as the eye can see.
Really?
This would be like a working garage.
They'd store them on the ceiling.
Store them on the ceiling and alcoves along the side. You know, space is always at a premium on an aircraft carrier. So
Yeah.
you're going to use every conceivable space that you can.
Gotcha.
Now, the planes obviously don't take off from down here. They do it from the flight deck. So to get them up, we had 3 massive hydraulic elevators on board.
Right.
Take a look at our information desk kind of to the side over there. That entire wall did not exist when the ship was still in service.
Right.
On the other side of it today is our movie theater, modern-looking movie theater.
Yeah, we've been there.
The pit of the theater used to be the aircraft elevator.
Really?
That wall was absent. Plane would roll right through onto a platform that in 7 seconds flat would lift the flight deck up to, or the aircraft up to the flight deck.
7 seconds?
7 seconds flat.
That's
Pretty important.
That's pretty fast.
It's very fast. It's not as fast as you think. If you're an elevator and you count, you'll actually find you move about that quickly.
Right, okay.
It's important because if you think about it, you have an armed-to-fuel plane. Last thing you want is it moving slowly up and down on the sides of the ship. So
Yeah.
you don't become under attack.
No kidding,
So
no
really
kidding.
a vital part of our operations are those elevators.
You take like 1 aircraft up at a time, 2 aircraft
Typically,
maybe?
depending on the plane, you probably could fit 2 of them, but
Right.
the reality is that logistically, moving that fast, it's a lot easier to put one on and roll it up than try to jimmy rig 2 to get
Because
up.
it takes time to get them to fit.
Precisely.
Put one on, send it up, bring it down, put one on,
And
send
these
it up.
guys are so well trained, it's like clockwork.
Yes.
Every couple seconds as you need.
You deploy the planes up to the flight deck sometimes quickly. You didn't want to take 8 hours to move planes up there, so 7 seconds makes sense.
Absolutely. Even about 100 aircraft on board, a major strike might be 40 planes taken together.
Wow. So it's still, I'm not going to do the math. I was going to do the math and be like, that's this many seconds, but you got to load the plane on, and then it has to come back down again.
So if you're looking at it from a takeoff point of view, Intrepid sets the all-time record for the 7th Fleet off Vietnam in 1967. We launched just under, wait for a minute. They launched, I think, just under, it's been so long.
Just make something up. They won't know.
It works its way out to about 7 seconds a plane. It's
Wow.
like 30 aircraft in under like 4 minutes or something like that. And it was a big deal because we're an older ship with a more
Yeah.
limited capability.
Yeah,
but the
yeah.
guys were able to do it. They actually get an award for that achievement.
They have an award for like lifting planes on the elevators.
How fast they can get them off the
That's
ship.
fantastic. So where should we go? Like,
Well, let's take a look over here first.
All
I
right.
mean, we think about the scale and the size of the Intrepid, and we try to really get that across to the public here. Chrysler Building. Those of you who aren't from town, pretty important building out there in New York City. Before the Empire State Building, one of the tallest and largest buildings in the world. It is just about as tall as Intrepid is long.
oh wow.
At about 900 feet. The easiest way to explain this to your average American audience, though, pick your 6 favorite football teams, put them up here. You can have 3 football games going on end to end at the same time.
Wow.
3 football fields long.
What was the total length of the Intrepid?
About 900 feet.
900
a little under
feet.
for World War II's configuration, a little over for post-World War
So
II.
not quite 3 Saturn V rockets. Saturn
another
V
way to
was
look
about
at it.
363 feet.
Yeah,
so you could
absolutely.
easily fit 2 Saturn V rockets laying down on the hangar deck. It's got that Apollo tie-in, right?
There we go.
There you go. See? All right. Cool.
We already, you guys kind of already saw that you probably didn't know at the depth of the ship. That little hole that the camera was looking down a little bit before shows you about 2/3 of the way down. But the ship goes even deeper than that. It's about another 40 feet of aircraft carrier underneath.
Wow.
So we're talking about a tremendous vessel. Now, that's kind of important for the Intrepid because when they start construction on this ship, they start building on a pretty important date, December 1st, 1941. And you think about it, what's the U.S. not officially part of on the 1st of December?
1st December 1941, World War II.
Yeah, we're still technically at peace.
Yeah.
We've got this massive military buildup going on, but they figure it's going to take about 3 years to build the Intrepid. Now, of course, 6 days later, they found out the hard way. They don't have 3 years anymore.
Right.
So big job ahead of them. They basically go to work around the clock. Newport News, where they're building the ship down in Virginia, hires tens of thousands of men and women to work on the ship. They work around the clock. One crew goes out, the other comes in.
Wow.
They finish up in 18 months.
Instead of half the time.
Yeah. Intrepid's launching is in April of 43, joined the Navy in August 1943, 75 years ago this past summer.
Wow.
Which is vital.
That is.
Absolutely vital to World War II in the Pacific.
That's part of the time where we're starting to move towards the carrier-based combat. We figured out the power of planes, right?
Absolutely.
So all through World War II, that was sort of the first real air wars that we had. You know, you had planes in World War I, but it was sort of like harassing people, scouting, that sort of stuff. World War II, we had the torpedo bombers that could attack ships. We had bombers that could attack the land targets. It was important for us to have carriers out there.
Absolutely.
So Intrepid was one of many, I don't know how many carriers we had. But
the way to think of it is when the war begins, we have just 7, right? And there's some similarities, but these are the ships we kind of learning, experimenting with since the very first carriers were developed in the 20s right after World War I.
Right.
In the first 6 months of war, 4 of them are lost. We go down to just 3 survivors.
Just 3 surviving carriers.
They hold the line. That name Enterprise, everybody knows the name. That name Enterprise is so famous because the World War II Enterprise for a while is the only one of those carriers operational. Another one's in the Atlantic, another one's down for repair, and Enterprise is by herself. But when you reach the beginning of 43, after that dark time, that's when Intrepid and her sisters start to come on the scene. So we go from that all-time low of 1 operational, 2 elsewhere, to upwards of 25, 30 by the war's end.
Wow.
A tremendous number. This design.
This design.
They built 16 of them before the war, this is sea combat. And then there are several more that are constructed the years immediately following the war that were under construction. So the war went longer. There would have been 24 just like this in service together.
24 floating cities with an airport on top of it, with a full hangar operation, the mechanics garage, like you were saying.
You know, one way to think of it is before the atomic bomb, this is the most powerful weapon in our military arsenal.
Right.
And we were ready to bring 24 of them to bear by 1947 when the war went on.
That's serious business. It really is. So nowadays, it's been converted to a museum, right? So we have amenities like air conditioning, right? Should we walk around and look at some stuff? Let's go see what else we have here. So there's some of the equipment here. How did Intrepid change over the years?
Well, that's a very good question. We can see that right here. Let's take a quick look at this model. This is our World War II configuration.
It's almost like I've been through here before.
So think of this as what Intrepid was built to be in 1943. Minor changes throughout the war, but by and large, this stuck around. You can see our 3 elevators. They're those yellow X's. One up forward, the one in the back in the center there, one hanging off to the side. About 100 modern aircraft on board. By the end of the war, about 150 anti-aircraft guns backing them up. Crew of 3,400 men.
3,400.
3,400. Now, that's World War II. Let's go down one more model. Let's take a look at what you look like during Vietnam.
Oh, it's like through the years.
I think most of our guests come in here and they think this is 2 different ships.
Right. It looks like it from the top.
Very much so. The person who served on board in World War II, they wouldn't even recognize it anymore in Vietnam. But these are essential changes, and they all really revolve primarily around one big thing. Notice the aircraft on the Vietnam model do not have propellers on.
Right.
Now, we still carry propeller planes, but the advent of jets, the need to adjust for jets, really explains most of the big changes.
What sort of jets are these?
Those are Skyhawks.
Skyhawks.
And Skyhawks are really the mainstay for Intrepid during the Vietnam War.
Gotcha.
You know, a lot of the most important stories we tell about Intrepid service in Vietnam revolve around the Skyhawk. See, by Vietnam, Intrepid is half the size of a modern aircraft carrier.
Right.
Skyhawk is built to be a light fighter bomber, weighs about 9,000 pounds, can carry about 9,000 pounds of bombs and extra fuel.
Wow.
So it's one of the few modern jets of that period that could successfully operate off of something like the Intrepid.
So Intrepid was small for for that time?
For Vietnam.
For Vietnam.
World War II, there were some earlier carriers that are bigger, but that's because they're converted battle cruisers, a little unwieldy.
Right.
But Intrepid's design was really the preeminent carrier design of the World War II period.
Okay.
Fast forward to Vietnam, the newest carriers being built at the wartime, something like the JFK,
right?
Which is actually in mothballs in Philadelphia right now.
That's another Apollo 50th reference.
There you go. Yeah.
Hey, there you go.
Those carriers of that period, they're almost double Intrepid size in terms of displacement.
Wow.
Taking all those dimensions together, we're talking for most Intrepid ever, 42,000 tons. Those ships like 80,000 tons.
Right.
Far larger. They carry bigger aircraft like the Intruder, eventually aircraft like the F-14 Tomcat,
right.
Top Gun fame.
Right.
These are planes that were too big, too heavy for Intrepid.
For Intrepid, gotcha. Okay, so the A4, the Skyhawks, you said, right?
Yeah.
Were the sort of mainstay, and that's what we have on this version of the model.
Here. You can see the angled flight deck.
Right.
It made landing a lot safer.
Yep.
World War II, you land rolling forward. So if you don't catch those arrestor wires back here, you're going to crash into the guys taking off if the wires don't catch you.
Gotcha.
On the jet age, at an angle, you have enough clearance to take off, fly around, and try again.
Right, instead of crashing into planes or operations.
Precisely. You're not supposed to do that. You do it too often, they're going to take your wings away.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Every time. But it does increase survivability on something like this.
Gotcha.
We've seen catapults come into being during this period.
Okay.
You can't really see them on the model. They're kind of portrayed by darker lines.
Yeah, you sort of see them there, yeah.
But that's capable of taking one of these aircraft from 0 to 150 miles per hour in 2.2 seconds as it hurls it off the ship.
Wow. Just like throwing them off the front of the ship.
Precisely. And that's essential for the jet age. It's a World War II propeller plane with an assist from the carrier of sailing into the wind.
Right.
Could take off under its own power.
Right.
You have hydraulic catapults to help if the wind doesn't cooperate, but by and large, it's going to be wind-assisted takeoff.
Right.
No jet can take off. Well, pardon me. No traditional jet can take off from an aircraft carrier without a catapult system.
Understood.
There's not a lot of remnants, but if you guys have a moment, take a look at the huge, crazy-looking pipe thing over there.
Right.
On the far wall behind us. That whole apparatus is the steam accumulator system, just designed to gather up the steam that would actually be fired into the catapult to launch the aircraft.
So that's for one of the catapults?
That's just one of the catapults. It's got a twin on the other side of the hangar deck.
Wow.
And that's not even producing the steam. It's just gathering it and then sending it up. The steam is produced, of course, down in the engines and funneled into that space.
And they use the engine from the steam from the engine to power the catapult.
Precisely.
Oh, wow. God. I imagine. So I know that there are some people watching the show right now who worked on aircraft carriers.
Cool.
And so I can't even imagine seeing that operator, hearing it take off. You see everybody on the deck, and they have all the hearing protection and stuff like that, and all of this steam sort of going at once is pretty cool to be able to see.
Without question.
Yeah.
And speaking of, the kind of the power of what's going on, this is one of our propellers.
Right? Oh, wow.
We put it here because the last time Intrepid was pulled out for some repair work in the 2000s, the ship got stuck in the mud, largely because of the propellers.
Right.
The joke we tell here is the Navy did the one thing it never wants to do. They called the Army Corps of Engineers in for help to dig out the Intrepid. But we got stuck in the mud trying to get the ship out. They finally got her out. They got her dry docked. They took the propellers off so it wouldn't happen again. Now, you had 4 of these on board. Together, they got Intrepid up to a top speed of about 34 knots. It's roughly 37 miles per hour.
7 miles per hour.
It's pretty fast. What really stands out is that our modern carriers say, at least on paper, don't go any faster than Intrepid did back in 1940.
Officially don't go any faster, right?
For reasons of physics, this is really as fast as they're supposed to be able to go.
Right, you can push this amount of mass displacement through this amount of friction from the water and pushing it out of the side. It's not even just friction, it's moving the water, right?
Precisely.
And you can only get so much traction, I guess, with the propeller.
And for the time, that made these fast carriers.
Yeah,
much faster than what came before.
Wow.
You can see the little pitting that's on that. That's just from the bubbles exploding on it, cavitation essentially.
Really?
As the thing spins over time, those little bubbles that explode, like when you wave your hand back and forth in water, you see little air bubbles.
Sure, you see the air, yeah.
Over time, that creates that pitting that will eventually start to eat away at this.
Oh, wow. It just makes little weak points, and then it gets worse and worse, so when it's not a nice smooth surface.
10 years in, you replace your propeller.
Yeah. But this is actually one of the operational propellers.
This is one of the ones that was on when Intrepid was retired in 74.
No kidding.
And stayed on the ship till 2009 when they had that major, or 2008 when they had that major restoration work.
Right.
And they pulled them on off.
All right, so it looks like there's some little pits on the front of the blade there. Did you see that there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that from the blade hitting something, or is that just normal wear and tear? I wonder.
I don't know. It could be either.
Yeah.
It honestly could be either.
Huh. It's just you see that and it looks like, a notch in a sword or something, like it's hit something. I wouldn't want to be whatever this propeller hits when it's spinning, though, that's for sure.
Well, by the number of years it was sitting here, you never know when it might have hit the Hudson.
Right.
But I couldn't even speculate.
Yeah, no kidding. I see little stuff like that, and it's little details that you can sort of see when you're at the museum in person, right?
Absolutely.
So, cool. What's next?
Let's take a look at one of the planes that served on board.
We're still going, y'all.
So World War II, you really have 3 main types of aircraft on board, right? You have your fighters, taking on enemy aircraft in the sky.
Right.
Your dive bombers, attacking enemy targets on the ground or ships. Then you have your torpedo bomber.
Right.
This is our torpedo bomber, the Grumman Avenger. It is World War II's biggest, heaviest, and many would say ugliest carrier plane.
It's big.
It's big, it's ungainly, but it carries a 2,000-pound torpedo.
Right, that's not a small torpedo.
No, not at all. You can see the propeller at the back end of there, explosives up toward the front. These were devastating. Intrepid pilots were very, very effective. Through the course of the war, they helped to sink Japan's two largest battleships,
right.
Yamato and Musashi.
Right.
Both cases, it's numerous torpedoes from these aircraft, assisted by the dive bombers, to really send those ships to the bottom.
No kidding. God. And I like this. So you were talking about space was a premium, right? Mm-hmm. On an aircraft carrier. Well, where are the wings on this plane? Like, what's wrong? This thing doesn't look like it's going to fly.
One of my favorite things to do when I'm talking to little kids is ask them, are the wings broken? What do we do to the plane? What's wrong with it? This design is very important. Folding wing design is vital to how carriers are able to operate.
Right.
This one, though, was kind of a cutting-edge thing because before this, wings would fold straight up.
Okay.
If we look up, we can see the problem here, right? There's not
you eventually,
clear,
yeah.
58 feet across.
God.
So basically, for years, we said that legend had it. Leroy Grumman, this is a Grumman aircraft,
right.
Aviation, took a eraser, stuck two paper clips in it, bended in and out the inner portions of the paper clips, and that's how we figured out the idea for this swing back design.
To swing it back.
Where you can kind of tuck it back like a duck or a turkey.
Yeah, yeah.
We found out a couple years back that it very much exists. They still have it. You can find pictures on the internet of that eraser with the two paper clips in it that Grumman used to demonstrate to his executives his idea for how the wings
should fold back. God.
Now, this aircraft, the Avenger, absolutely vital component of World War II, absolutely vital component of victory. Originally designed and built on Long Island by Grumman, but then sent out to be manufactured by other manufacturers around the country.
Gotcha.
The factory that built this for Grumman on Long Island goes on to build the Hellcat, Grumman's famous fighter aircraft.
Right.
And actually, my grandmother worked in that factory building both of those planes.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Got the family tie-in.
Oh, yeah.
So here's the thing, right? There's no ladder going up to this. Like, how would you get into this aircraft?
So there would be little footholds that they would
footholds?
Their foot in there. It's hard to see it from here. There's a couple back behind the wing there.
Yeah.
But basically, it's like a little trap door, almost like a dog door in a house.
Right, there is.
You stick your foot in, and that'll let you climb.
And you
up
can
there.
sort of climb up on top of it. Gotcha. Because on the inside, it's almost like two stories.
Yeah.
You've got the pilot, and there's a second, I guess, the gunner or whatever in the back.
All the way back. There's a door and a window.
There's a door and a window back there.
That's where our radio operator would be.
Yeah.
And behind the cockpit, there's actually a little glass turret. That's where our anti-aircraft guns.
The gunner. So there would be a crew of three.
3 people on board.
3 people. Gotcha. So 2 up on top, and then 1 sort of in the belly of it, right? This was a 2-story airplane like the space shuttle.
Exactly.
Not an airplane, but it had the flight bridge, then it had the mid-deck, and then it had the lower deck, the 3 different stories in the crew area of the space shuttle, like we have up on an Enterprise. This is the same sort of thing. It's 2 decks inside of a Avenger.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah. Cool.
This one's been heavily modified. I mean, we made some changes to bring it back to its original configuration, but the reason it survived is after the war, these were great for forest firefighting. So ours was heavily modified. Inside of there, you would have had space to flame retardant on a forest fire.
They could drop. Oh, wow.
And if you look, I don't know if you'll be able to see on the camera, there's a little circle right below the cockpit there that's been painted over many times. I've gotten real close to it. There's actually a New York State seal under the paint because this was in the Adirondacks fighting forest fires for decades.
Really? That circle right there, sort of in the light blue area?
Exactly, right in that light blue area.
You got that there? Yeah.
Yeah. It's been challenging, but our curator has found a lot of history on this plane, and it was very, very important to New York State for a long time.
That's something we learned when we went to the restoration hangar. We were talking about how they would sort of dig through the layers of paint as it was an archaeological expedition.
Absolutely.
And you strip away one layer and you see this logo, and you strip away another layer, and then there's this version of an emblem or something. You strip away another, and they sort of paint over time, and you can see the history of the aircraft through its layers of paint or insignia.
And even the type of paint has significance.
Yeah.
Let me show you the ball turret.
And hey, chat, like I said, we are live. We will get a chance for some questions and stuff like that. I'm not reading a lot of chat because I'm listening to Mike here. But if there are questions, I will see if I can catch some things out. So I know that I'm probably missing some things. Don't give up. It's because I'm just letting Mike talk.
Please, folks, if you have questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Yeah.
Now, this would have sat behind the cockpit up on the aircraft. It's a little hard to kind of imagine looking at it here. This was put together from structural spare parts.
Right.
Because for some reason, they didn't want an anti-aircraft gun up there for forest firefighting. I can't imagine why.
Jeez.
But think of it like if the cockpit is, 2 humps on a camel, right? The cockpit where the pilot is one hump. This is right behind it pointing aft.
Gotcha.
Now, vital because when a torpedo bomber attacks, it flies in low and slow, close to the water toward the side of the enemy ship.
Right.
Straight and true. Now, they're being fired at by the enemy ship.
Sure.
They can't really dodge the gunfire too much.
They need to keep on the track to put the torpedo, yeah.
Precisely. So from behind, when they're very most vulnerable, this machine gun is going to protect them.
Right.
It is not a pleasant place to be. Your knees are tucked up to your chest. You don't have a parachute on. There's not enough room for that.
Really?
Something goes on. You're going to swivel down to the belly of the plane, pull on your parachute, and jump out the side door.
Wow.
Remember, there's no such thing as ejection seats yet in World War II.
Yeah.
That's a post-war concept. That said, it's pretty advanced stuff. It's got a device built into the far side called interrupter gear that'll actually prevent you from accidentally shooting the tail off your own plane.
Oh, wow.
If you've seen Indiana Jones, that's what he fortunately does to his plane. Sean Connery shoots them down. Here, this device will cut power to the gun as you swing around.
Right.
Cut power back on again right when you're past the tail.
When you pass the tail, so you're not going to chop your own tail off.
Vital to how this thing operates.
God, no kidding. All right, where to next? That's a big plane.
Yeah, it's a huge.
Look, I'm gonna go step next to it right quick. Like,
it is the biggest purpose-built carrier plane of the war. Doolittle rig, they have large bombers they put on carriers, but they're purpose-built.
They weren't for the carrier, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, and we should keep moving because this is going to do this thing. Yeah.
Second.
Yeah.
Real quick as we come past, these are actually some bits of the kamikaze aircraft that hit our ship in World War II.
Oh, wow.
Intrepid, one of her unfortunate claims to fame is she is one of the most hit American carriers to survive the war.
Wow.
5 kamikaze aircraft in the course of World War II, including 2 on one day on November 25th of 1944.
Wow.
They saved the ship, but there are tremendous casualties. If you look close, you can actually see some writing in Japanese on some pieces.
Yeah. And I think this is like a multimedia presentation that happens on occasion.
Absolutely. It's going to play in a couple minutes, actually with the noise, if you guys are hearing music in the background. That walks you through that worst day. 2 actors who look just like men who served on board explain to you the experience. It's very, very powerful.
Gotcha. Wow. That's another one of those things, like we're not going to try to broadcast that for you. That's the thing, you stand in the middle of sort of this area at the museum, and there's flashing lights, and there's sound, and there's a screen, there's smoke that plays, so it's sort of the kamikaze experience.
Absolutely.
To try and sort of get a little bit of a feel for what it's like.
It's a tearjerker, but it's one of the most worthwhile things we have here.
God. The air conditioning continues to be nice.
It's even better back here.
Yeah.
So, World War II ends.
Right.
Remember, we talked earlier, all these carriers have been built.
Yep.
United States Navy decides they really don't need all these carriers. They put a lot of them in the mothballs.
Right.
A lot of ships never come out of the mothballs. Intrepid goes in 1947, stays until 1954.
Right.
Now, by that point, Korea's broken out. Korea's become a bigger conflict. We were worried about going at it with the Soviet Union. It didn't happen. But because of that, we're pulling a lot of those carriers out and rebuilding them for the jet age.
Sure.
That's when the changes that explain the difference in the 2 models come about.
Right.
Brooklyn Naval Yard, one of the last jobs it does in 1956 is it puts the angled flight deck on Intrepid. And from there, with minor modifications, that configuration of Intrepid holds up until 74 when the ship is retired.
Wow.
So I know Jim told you guys about recovering the astronauts.
Right.
Our Mercury capsule right over here. That was done with that configuration.
Yep.
And then a couple years later, Intrepid goes to Vietnam with that configuration.
Gotcha. We'll wait one for the... Oh, the closing bell is what that is.
Yeah.
That's the museum closing.
I pulled some strings, folks.
Yeah, pulled some strings. We have a
Josh is an old friend of the museum.
Yeah, there you go. So how do we want to get this thing? I mean...
why don't we come around this? I'll come around this side because you can see some of the paintwork that they've done.
All right, cool.
They just recently put the lizard on the...
Oh, it does have a lizard underneath it now, doesn't it?
Symbol of that squadron.
Yeah, and if they're closed, you can like back off and get a wider shot or whatever, right?
Absolutely.
Cool.
This is the Skyhawk. We saw it in the smaller little model before.
Right.
Mainstay of the Vietnam War. Very, very important aircraft, that light fighter bomber.
Right.
Now, Intrepid, when she goes to Vietnam in 1966, half of our aircraft are Skyhawks, the other half are the Skyraider, propeller plane. We got up on the flight deck. We might see it later on.
Right.
But as the war goes on, next year we have 3 squadrons of these, 1 squadron of Skyraiders. By the time we go to Vietnam the last time in 68, all 4 squadrons are made up of Skyhawks.
Skyhawks, gotcha.
So a vital plane. Now, a lot of Intrepid's casualties in that conflict are also guys who are flying Skyhawks. Just
right.
how many are there. Let's talk about one of them in particular.
Okay.
Arnie Brahms. 1968, he's flying the Skyhawk. He's going on a mission over North Vietnam.
Right.
And the last thing anybody hears from him is he screams on the radio, "Puffs all around me, anti-aircraft fire," and he disappears.
Wow.
They don't see where the plane crashed. They have no idea what happened to him. They overfly the area. Mystery goes on.
Right.
He's declared missing in action. When the POWs are released a couple years later, he's not among them. He's declared legally dead.
Right.
His family still doesn't have any closure. Fast forward a number of years, 2011, for several years by that point, we've been working with the Vietnamese trying to find crash sites, trying to find remains.
Right.
They had found remains back in the 90s of his plane. They found human remains, but the DNA technology was not good
Wasn't
enough
there
to
yet.
identify them. 2011, brand new mitochondrial DNA technique conclusively links his DNA to that of his sister Marjorie Waddell.
Right.
2012, Barney Brahms was finally brought home, laid to rest with full honors at Arlington National Cemetery.
Wow.
The last Intrepid man to come home from the Vietnam War.
That's like a Goosebumps sort of story, man.
It's a very real thing. Still going on. A couple of our guys from World War II were found relatively recently in the last couple of years. Their plane had went in for a bombing mission on an island.
Yeah.
It was blown apart. Most of the plane was knocked out to sea, but the tail fell in a mangrove glade, which kind of grows in the swamps.
Right, yeah, the mangrove is like a swamp.
Over 70 years, that tail piece of the plane got embedded in a mangrove that grew up, tall enough to see it out of the water. Locals saw it, told a group that looks for American pilots about it. They figured out the trajectory and found the plane just offshore. The remains of those 3 Intrepid pilots brought home.
Because the tail, you said?
Because a piece of the plane, I believe it was the tail,
piece of the plane grew up in a tree.
And they figured out that they must be that far offshore.
That's crazy.
They still find them today.
Wow. It's the sort of thing, it's like, oh, the aircraft carrier is awesome, like it's got planes and they've got bombs and, but that's a human story.
Absolutely.
Because the aircraft carrier didn't go out there and launch its own planes. There were human beings flying the planes, working on them, driving the ship and cooking the meals. Every single thing that had to happen to make the carrier operate was done by human beings.
Without question.
And so sometimes they didn't make it home. In attacks, they might go overboard, they may be in a plane that crashes somewhere, and to sort of to close the story like that and sort of figure out what happened with somebody, that's really cool.
It's an open wound for many people, the idea of missing, right?
Yeah.
The POW MIA flag.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not the capture, it's also about the guys you just don't know what happened to them.
Yep.
And at least for those 4, Brahms and those other 3, that closed that chapter.
Yeah, gotcha. And we know we are getting the experiences going, so we're going to go, should we go farther from it or should we turn around and walk past?
We should turn around, so head back to the gun.
All right, so we're going to walk back this way. We going through the anchor room?
Yeah, we're going to go around and through the anchor room. We just got to get past Kamikaze.
Yeah, so for just a second, the Kamikaze experience is going to be going on.
Folks, we promise this is a simulated attack.
Yeah.
Simulated.
So those were, is actor the right term? They were dressed up in the period garb, reenactments, sort of.
You see at the end how much they look like these guys, and it's one thing.
Wow.
Period guard, they're talking as if they're those guys. One of them is a huge hero. I won't spoil the end, like
Sure.
DeMarzo. He was 14 years old when he lied about his age to join the Navy in World War I and never got caught.
Wow.
Moves to Long Beach, California, gets a job as a firefighter when he leaves the Navy. December 8, 1941, he resigns as the chief of the Long Beach City Fire Department to rejoin the Navy and serve again. He's old enough he doesn't have to.
Right.
Now, then people who are volunteer firemen or paid firemen listening, you know what chief is next to God. The fact that that man walked away from being chief of a major city to serve again is heroism in and of itself.
Yeah, no kidding.
Now, real quick, take
Wow.
a look at this. That's Intrepid's first birthday cake.
Really?
By the crew, in August 1944. It weighed 750 pounds.
Wait, they made a cake that weighed 750
They
pounds?
made even bigger ones later. Hold that thought. 1,080 eggs in the batter. Wow. And at least according to the ship's newspaper, so grain of salt here, these guys polished that thing off in about 45 minutes.
Wow.
I didn't think that was possible. I talked to a baker who we interviewed as part of our oral history program not too long ago. He told me that you could do it because what you'd do is you'd have a guy serving at each corner and you'd have 4 lines
Working towards the middle, yeah.
The middle.
A 700-pound cake.
It's a big cake. They baked cakes that weighed up to 2,000 pounds in the later period.
Wow.
Yeah. So much so that we're going to walk past the bomb elevator in a minute and I'll show it to you.
Yeah.
They had to use the bomb elevator to move those cakes. And the guy told me that they had the Marine Guard guarding the cake for fear that anything would happen to it because of how much effort they put in.
Really?
Had to use pound cake because it was the only type of cake that would stand up to that amount of weight.
That amount of weight. It's like dense. It was structurally secure enough or something, right?
It wouldn't go stale as fast, which is important because it took days to make.
Yeah, yeah.
This is one of our bomb elevators. These are really interesting. This particular one was modified during the 1950s to carry nuclear weapons.
Wow.
They made it longer, very, very quick. Again, I don't remember the numbers off of my head, but the amount of times they could bring a bomb up and then go back down again, offloading, was incredible.
Pretty quick, yeah.
Especially when you think about the fact that it's not a straight path. This is really important. On an aircraft carrier, you do not want a single channel that goes all the way down, all the way up.
Okay.
If you think about it, what happens when water floods up or explosions of fire come down?
Right.
It's a straight path between.
It's a straight path.
So you jog it. This elevator will go up to the flight deck, but from here we'll only go down one more level to the second deck.
Right.
Your bomb, if you're bringing it back in, so you decided not to launch a nuclear weapon, you bring it back down,
putting it back in.
Roll it out of the elevator to the second deck, you roll it down the short hallway into another elevator that will take it on the rest of its journey. That jog is intentionally built in to ensure that if something happens in either one of those elevators,
it
doesn't carry it all the way through.
All the way through the ship.
You see that again and again repeated, even how men move around. When you get down below the third deck, even something in the third deck, if you want to go from forward to aft, you got to go up and down again, up and down again. You can't just go across the straight path.
No kidding.
Watertight boxes.
Yeah. That makes perfect sense.
Vital parts of the design.
It's one of those things you don't think about, but it makes perfect. You just like, oh, it's an elevator. It goes where it needs to go. But no, you don't want a big straight shaft. As it turns out, they knew what they were doing.
Very much so.
Yeah. God.
Actually, take a quick look over here at the model again. You can see the rudder down there. February 1944. Intrepid's first combat damage. We're off the coast of Truk in the middle of the night.
Right.
Japanese torpedo bomber breaks through our defenses and plants a torpedo right there.
Wow.
Explosion rips a 50-foot hole in the ship. This whole area down here floods with water. These little anti-aircraft guns, and they're called, what are called gun tubs.
Right.
That last gun tub is sheared off the ship by the impact, tossed a couple hundred feet away.
Wow.
5 men manning it are never seen again. The rudder is bent and jammed at a severe angle. But because of that watertight structure, huge area back here floods. It never makes it past the watertight bulkheads there in the middle there.
Right.
The rest of the ship has enough buoyancy to move on and do its thing because of how effective that design is.
Because of how they designed it.
And it was a big deal for Intrepid because we're the first ship of this type damaged.
Yeah.
So we really proved the success
Proved
of this
the design.
off truck.
Oh, wow.
Not long ago, one of my colleagues was able to figure out the exact spot it hit because we have a photo
Right.
of Intrepid in dry dock being repaired from that. The camera's looking up through the hole in the ship and a hallway and a bunch of structural things that are there.
Exposed?
Found where they are on the ship, and you can stand inside where the hole is and see those structures.
Wow.
Maybe down the road we'll see if we can
Yeah,
take a
yeah.
look at that.
Sounds like a good plan. Another catapult?
There's another
Accumulator or whatever?
Actually, some of the pieces of what Intrepid's made out of.
Okay.
So if you guys have seen this before, this is what we're walking on now. 2.5 inches of solid armored steel. This explains why, after 5 kamikazes, Intrepid still lived to fight another day.
Right.
Stuff would penetrate to here, but it would never break through where we're
Get
standing.
through here,
now.
yeah.
Now, why would it? Flight deck, a lot of folks don't realize it's made out of wood. Teak wood specifically.
Still? Or it
To
was
this day.
originally?
Well, we put metal plating over the very top of it because, frankly, the teak wood couldn't stand up to New York winters anymore.
Sure.
But all through our history, through 74 and retirement, there's a very thin layer of, this is basically anti-skid paint.
Right.
And underneath you, I have a little bit of like metal, sheet metal almost to hold it as a frame.
Right.
But the main structural component is teak, and then I forget what the type of wood they put on top of that
No
is for a little
kidding.
more power.
Gosh.
All through history, World War II and up. And it sounds like a big design flaw. It actually was pretty good.
Yeah.
If you had a single bomb go off in a hole in your deck, plane circling running out of fuel, wooden deck, it was easy to repair. You run out with purpose-built patches that are thrown down.
That makes
Later,
sense.
a hammer and nails, you fix it.
Yeah.
It also made the ship faster, more maneuverable, greater range of the fuel we can carry.
Lighter?
Oh, yes, no.
Okay.
Lower center of gravity.
Lower center of gravity.
The weight's
Thank you.
here.
Yeah,
Several
yeah.
layers down.
Instead of having a big old steel deck up on top. Iron.
Precisely.
Yeah.
When with steel deck up top would require more structural supports, thus a smaller hangar deck, thus less planes.
That makes sense.
British had that problem. But in the face of kamikazes, the wood did become a liability.
Wow. No kidding. It's a wooden flight deck.
It's weird, right?
Yeah, it is. Let's see here. We will let's maybe step past here right quick. This is serious business.
Little known fact that during World War II, we got so desperate for metal, we had to make our ships out of Lego.
Out of Lego bricks.
This is very, very cool. Gentlemen from the UK built the 250,000 Lego bricks and remarkably accurate representation of our World War II configuration.
Wow.
Sometimes I bring bricks over to some of the model because it's bigger and it's kind of easier to see.
Yeah.
You can even see, remember I told you guys about the aircraft elevator?
Yep.
Between the 2 green guys up front here?
Oh, there is.
That's the aircraft elevator.
The aircraft. You can actually see onto the hangar deck down there.
Now, our volunteers are responsible for caring for this thing, which takes an awful lot of effort. They got to dust the whole thing.
Sure.
When pigeons get in here, which happens every once in a while, they always try to get out that window, not realizing that's not the way out.
Not ideal.
They tend to inflict biological warfare all over this.
On that goes.
One way the volunteers have kind of put their own personal touch on it is, I don't know if you'll be able to see this with the light, but if you can zoom in on that Lego figure's head there, folks at home may recognize Lego Harry Potter as the pilot.
Lego Harry Potter. Oh my gosh, this is a lot of Legos.
Yeah.
This is a lot of Legos. And look, you get one more thing for me. So I was looking to see if the elevator actually had structure underneath or what it was. There's actually some Technic pieces in there with little teeth and gear sort of things. It doesn't look like it actually goes up and down, but they did put some detail inside the hangar there. Can you see that? Yeah.
It may go up and down. I've never seen it plugged in, but from what I'm told, the way that it's configured, you can plug this thing in and a lot of the stuff up on the island there will move.
Like
There's
turns?
all kinds of lights that go on and off.
No kidding. And Chad, I know every time we come here, this is very difficult to film because you got the big bright window behind it, right? So I know it is sort of difficult to see sometimes, but that's a lot of Legos. Let's just leave it at that, maybe.
Here. I wish they had this when I was a kid.
Yeah. Wow. So, okay, here's a question. Since we're going up to the anchor room, right? Was it open like that originally?
No.
Okay, that's just for view.
This whole area in World War II was built open. Now, people often say to me, why did they decide to make it open? It's the opposite.
Okay.
And to decide later to enclose it.
Okay.
The way that shipbuilding design looked at the carrier is that the level we're on right now is part of the superstructure, which basically means think of this as more like a parking garage.
Right.
They thought of this as like a lean-to-like structure that has stuff above, but not something that would ever be closed in. That would be foreign to them. Thus the big opening. The problem is these ships are go through typhoons and hurricanes in World War II. The wave action was so powerful that without a lot of structural support down there, there are photos of some of the carriers of this class, the entire flight deck caved down over that area.
Oh, wow.
It's a pretty serious problem. So post-war, they installed what they call the hurricane bow as part of those reconfigurations, which completely closes off that area.
Gotcha. Well, let's go see that in person.
See the hurricane bow.
And hey, chat, again, if you're wondering where we are, we're at the Intrepid Sea, Air, and Space Museum. We're in New York City. It's a big, we're out here for the Apollo 50th, but every time we come, we try to cover more than just one event. So we've got Mike Murtagh with us. He is a senior educator, tour guide, should say it on the screen. And he is fantastic walking around with us here, giving us information, telling us stories that you don't get unless you get a chance to talk with somebody. So I can't say enough, if you are able to come to a museum like this, sign up for a guided tour or something.
Absolutely.
You'll get so much more out of a guided tour where you have an actual professional who's got the stories like on tap to continually tell you. So I can't say it enough. It really does add a lot to the experience as opposed to just sort of walking through a museum. Now, one last thing, we are inside the structure of the ship now, right? So if the signal drops or something like that as we're walking through here, that's to be expected. If the signal does drop, we'll note it and we'll come right back. But as we walk up here, we don't know if the signal is going to hold or not. We think it is, but let's give it a try.
Let's find out.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. And lead the way. You're in charge.
Just watch out for the knee knocker here as we go closer to the hatch. You can see we painted it yellow and I pointed out to people.
People can see it, yeah.
Welcome to the anchor chain room.
Oh, wow. So this is the enclosed part.
This is the enclosed part. So if you look around you, try to imagine none of these walls here. It'd be like being on the front porch of the Intrepid.
The front porch of the Intrepid.
Wide open.
Wow.
Now, it's always been home to the anchor chains. Pretty important piece of equipment.
That's why it's called the anchor chain.
Yeah, there you go.
I worked that out myself.
Plus 2 is 4. Right now, we're not at anchor, right? We're tied up to New York City.
Sure.
We have a line, I'll show you that in a few minutes, that actually ties us to the ship. There's about 6 of them stretching down.
Right.
The reality is an aircraft carrier is you're going to go to places where that's not an option, right? You're either in a port where it's not big enough for an aircraft carrier to tie up, smaller city, or, you're out at sea. World War II, you're out at some island base.
Right, like at a big harbor or something.
Exactly. That's where the anchor comes in. It's about 1,002 chains. They're a little bit, one's a little longer than the other, but each about 1,000 feet long. Right. They have 15-ton anchors that are just outside hooked up.
So the anchor chains were about as long as the entire ship.
Yeah,
if they're 1,000, the ship's about 1,000.
But you're never going to anchor in that deep of water because you want the anchor is part of it, but it's really the weight of the anchor plus the chain that keeps you floating away. So you want a couple hundred feet of that anchor chain on the bottom.
On the bottom.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's not just like there's a big anchor that's like hooked around a bit of coral or something, right?
No,
it's just a bunch of weight on the ocean floor.
They do that too. I don't know if any coral's going to keep this thing going.
Yeah.
But
That's the only thing I can think of on the ocean floor.
Absolutely.
Like SpongeBob's house or something. I don't know. Like what would it hook to?
Maybe his pineapple.
Yeah, his pineapple under the sea. Exactly.
These are much more complicated than they look in terms of care.
Right.
Because if you think about it, salt water's corrosive, anchored, vital part of the ship. So when you drop these things, you're doing it all the time, once every couple of days,
Right.
For a couple of days, and you pull it back up again. When you pull it back up, there's a whole process.
Right.
You're going to start out with guys down there toward where it goes out of the ship.
Okay.
First group of guys are spraying this off with fire hoses, knocking off all the salt water, coral, anything that's kind of accumulated on the thing. Next group of guys are literally drying this.
Right.
Third group of guys are inspecting it, looking for gouges, scrapes, cracks, rust,
so they would be
any kind.
Drying it and inspecting it as they pull it.
And then they repaint it.
Wait.
Every single time it comes back on board.
Really?
Completely repainted. First with a bright orange primer.
Yeah.
And they kind of slather over that a darker coat of paint.
No kidding.
Goes down, they call that piece of wildcat, and it spins around and goes down into the bowels of the ship.
So it's stored, I guess the bulk of it is stored down low, but this is the equipment that sort of pulls on it, I guess.
It comes up, they call it a chain locker. So it comes straight up out of the chain locker.
Yeah.
And then that thing there, it's like a spindle essentially.
Yeah.
It's pulling it in and out.
And it's got like teeth on it that match the chain links, I guess, right, to actually get a grip on it. God, and they're pulled all the way up right now.
Yeah, they're
right?
all the way up right now.
So,
they're also held in by, they call these things pelican hooks.
Right.
They're shaped like a pelican's beak. That also holds it in place.
Like to hold it. Oh, this right here is a pelican hook. This part.
Yeah. If you're going to let it go, this is actually a bit of a process too. You fire it up, you back them up a little bit.
Right.
Pressure off, you detach one of the pelican hooks, then you let it fall backwards so all the power is on the other pelican hook.
Right.
You can see there's this rope here.
Yep.
So it's a 3-man process. One guy's going to stand here. His job is to pull this out. Once that's out, you're still held in by this piece, so you're standing there, you're going to have a big old sledgehammer.
Right.
Your job is to hit that
like,
knot
ding.
open.
Yeah.
Man number 3 is basically attached to you. He's wearing this white jacket that's also looped around you like a 2-man straitjacket.
Right.
His job is to rip you out of the way as fast as he can once you connect with that sledgehammer. Because if you stumble forward, any part of you gets caught in this chain, you're going out that little hole with the anchor.
Yeah.
After the flight deck is one of the most dangerous places to be on board during operations because of how complicated this process is.
God.
There's power behind these anchors.
You think it's like, oh, it's just a chain, whatever, that's easy, but it's a lot of energy.
It's 15 tons starting, and then all the anchor chain going, you know, it's like the juggernaut.
Yeah.
There's no stopping it.
Gosh, that's cool. You could almost, did you almost see outside? Like you can almost see the water looking out the front of the ship there. I see daylight for sure.
On your side, you probably get a better view.
Yeah. God. Well, where are we headed next? This is really cool. And again, thanks for spending time with us here. This is
Well, you asked me about it being open in World War II. Let me tell you a real quick story about that.
It'd be cooler in here if it was open right now.
Oh, it would be.
Look at a breeze.
The fact that it was open saved the ship from destruction in World War II after that torpedo. Remember I told you the rudder was jammed?
Right.
The jam of the rudder forced the ship to turn to the side.
Right.
This was a serious problem.
Of course.
What you normally do on a ship like this to steer if your rudder's non-functional is you vary the speed of the propellers.
Right, like on one side, differential steering.
Just
yeah.
like the way a tank drives with two different things that'll make you turn. The problem is the ship presents such a big target to the wind that every time they try to do that, the wind causes the ship to weathercock and point back toward Japan.
Yeah.
The captain writes in his log, I'm not so interested in going to Japan just yet. They get back to Pearl Harbor. They get this crazy idea. They gather all the thickest canvas material they can find on board, cargo nets, stuff like that. They stitch together a giant sail and hang it from floor to ceiling on that entire side down here, blocking it off.
Really?
Tunnel effect.
Because it was open.
Exactly. Wind whips in on this side, pushes on that. They also move some stuff around to create weight distribution.
Yeah.
If you imagine, here, put this down. If you imagine the propellers are moving back here.
Right.
The rudder is causing the ship to turn this way.
Right.
But now the wind is, or rather, the propellers are causing the ship to turn this way. The wind's pushing through, pushing that way. The wind counteracts the propeller, or the rudder, brings the Intrepid back on a relatively straight shot to Pearl Harbor and safety.
Like they literally sailed it back.
Only American carrier in history to have ever sailed into port.
Sailed into port.
I mean, it took a lot. Sail was just part of it.
Yeah,
that was the ingenuity of the time, coming up with that idea to counteract that bend in the rudder to get the ship home.
Because the rudder was damaged and it was trying to turn it in circles, basically.
Exactly.
God, let's keep on keeping on here. We have about 10 minutes to get back up to the Space Shuttle Pavilion, so we are walking and talking.
Back to the Space Shuttle Pavilion.
Why is there, why is there like a beep beep?
So, sailor art was really big on this ship, especially in the early 70s forward. Elmo Zumwalt, who took over as Chief of Naval Operations after Vietnam, he had a series of reforms called Z-grams. So he's the man who put women in different roles they hadn't been in before for the first time. The guys have beards and stuff on ships to a certain point. He also insisted on greater tolerance for things like expression.
Right.
So the Roadrunner's here. I'm told there used to be a coyote over there, and that was like the mascot of the guys in the two anchor chain lines. They did that crazy process I just told you of cleaning, inspecting, painting, etc.
No kidding.
What I love about this is if you talk to kids of a certain age today, they have no idea.
They have no idea who this is, right?
Parents are always so shocked they have no idea who it is.
Chad, who hasn't seen this before? Who couldn't name this cartoon character? This is very famous from the time that I was growing up. Cartoon character.
Yeah, likewise.
I saw it there.
Jam, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I saw it and I had to ask right quick. God.
It's important to remember, the guys on this ship, average age is 19.
19.
There are probably at any given time 100 men who are 17 and mom or dad signed the permission slips they could join the Navy.
Oh, wow.
They're
What's
kids.
the hatch there?
And for them, their culture is going to be reflected in the things you see.
Yeah.
If you look at this corner very briefly here, this was triple sticks, right? Stateroom 0111. The 4 men who lived in here in old Vietnam were all in their mid-20s.
Right.
They called it triple sixes. It was their home away from home. We know about their antics more than anything else because they kept a journal about their time on board that talks about all their crazy parties they had up here and the wild things that they got up to.
Really?
But it's a mix of like, yeah, we had this great party and nobody caught us drinking illicit alcohol on board, mixed with, hey, our friend so-and-so was shot down today.
Wow.
And we don't know what happened to him.
Wow.
So it's a rough experience, but you can look. They have sports figures hung up behind them. This is a recreation, of course. Pictures of Life magazine. They're young men of that period. This is not that much different from
got some muscle cars up there, yeah.
Exactly. It's just the stakes are higher. The stakes are much, much higher.
That's very. I mean, it's very cool. It's very awe-inspiring. I guess it's always a hard thing because it's a rough time. It's a real time, but it's also inspiring. I guess is a way to say it. Just that people would sign up to come do this, and end up doing this for years and years.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Right up those stairs there.
Okay, right here. All right. And I assume we're right. Mm-hmm. Oh, there's a little breeze turning the corner here. And again, chat, again, we keep on walking, so if we lose the signal, we lose the signal. Wow. So let's let the camera operator get back up here. So this was the thing you told us about earlier, too. Real quick.
Right now, folks, we're about to step outside.
It's hot. Let's stand in the black painted room, right?
Why is the room painted black? Right? It's weird. It's called a light locker. If you're out at sea and you don't want to be identified, well, if you have light leaping out of doors that are opened up, it's going to be pretty obvious where the ship is.
Right.
They are careful about these guys smoking cigarettes for fear people see the burning coal.
Wow.
So the idea behind the light locker was if we close the door where the camera is now, and we close the outer door, and we open up the door where the camera is, step into this room's pitch black.
Right.
We close that door, it's pitch black again. Now we open up the door going outside, no one sees that light leak out. It's like a pass-through.
It's almost like an airlock for light, a light locker.
That's great.
Yeah, a light locker. Makes sense. I didn't know that. I didn't even know that was a thing that they did.
And vital, absolutely vital. Remember, Intrepid's torpedo damage is inflicted at night.
Yeah.
They were able to identify this carrier. And leaking light, I don't know that caused it.
Yeah.
That's the sort of thing they would be worried about.
You would have to be worried about. No kidding. Yeah. Let's keep going. So we've got 7 minutes to make it up there right now. Whew.
So these are our anti-aircraft guns. We got examples of the 3 primary types that were on board in World War II.
Right.
Largest, 5-inch gun here. Can fire around about 10 miles in distance, right? 50-pound shell, very powerful, very capable. In many ways, the most useless anti-aircraft gun on board. 5-inch gun's primarily an anti-ship weapon,
right?
But Intrepid's ringed by other ships that are there to protect them. Battleships, cruisers, destroyers, so it's rare that they're going to need this.
If you had to engage another ship with this weapon, you've already done something wrong. You're already in a bad situation.
You're in trouble. That means your whole escort is gone.
Right.
Battleship New Jersey is off Intrepid through the whole war. Her job, much of the war, her job is to sacrifice herself if she has to protect the Intrepid. The carrier's always primary.
Yeah.
But planes, on the other hand, that's a big threat that the other ships aren't going to be able to stop all the time. That makes this gun, the smaller one, the 40-millimeter gun, much more important. It's also known as the Bofors gun. It's a Swedish design that everybody stole the patent for during World War II.
Right.
Used widely by both sides. Fires a shell about the size of your forearm, and each barrel can put out 2 rounds every second.
Wow.
So it's a tremendous amount of anti-aircraft fire in the sky.
Each barrel could do 2 rounds a second.
Each barrel.
Wow.
Now, throughout the war, we have these on board. They're very effective, but our gunners only shoot down 14 enemy planes.
Okay.
A lot of people think that sounds like a small number. Why, right? We're in a lot of enemy combat. We shoot down over 300 Japanese planes in the sky. The reason is because an anti-aircraft gun is not so much about shooting planes down as is keeping them away.
Right.
Suppressing fire.
Right.
What I like to explain is 150 guns on board, all firing at once. They're the quills of the porcupine, right?
Right.
Makes it very hard for that enemy plane to break through.
Gotcha.
So that works great through much of the war.
It's like a volume of fire thing.
Precisely.
Like, it's a protective bubble, just like to deny the area, deny the territory.
Without question, right? Because the pilot is deterred, or he doesn't have time to line up correctly.
Yep.
But let's think about
something else to worry about.
Yeah. Late World War II. What kind of Japanese plane and pilot isn't so interested in getting away during their attack?
Right. The kamikazes.
This is the part of why the kamikazes are so deadly. They defy the logic of the anti-aircraft gun. How do you deter someone who has no sense of self-preservation in their mission?
They're not anticipating coming.
Exactly.
I gotcha. All right. Well, let's keep on keeping on here, y'all. In chat, hey, I know I see questions in chat. I'll see if I can grab some while we're walking here. We do have another guest that we're coming up to. That's why we're sort of on a schedule to get back to the Space Shuttle Pavilion by 6 p.m. So we will. We might just have to walk straight back there because we're 5:55 right now.
Let's do that. I could probably answer a few questions for you if you like.
Yeah. So now's a good time, chat. Now is a good time. If you have questions for Mike, clearly he knows his stuff about Intrepid. If you have any questions, now is the time to put them in. We got until the time we walk back to that Space Shuttle Pavilion. And let's see what you get. Just people just talking about all sorts of stuff. The Bofors gun. It's a beautiful stage. It's a beautiful day in New York. It's a little like a little hot. Let's see here. Just scrolling through. People telling stories. Something like that in the logs. You have to tell Mike he's doing a fantastic job.
Oh, thank you.
I'm gonna translate that Ricardo 92. I'm gonna translate that for you as it's really cool. a little bit stronger language than it's really cool, but we'll go with it. We got the Roadrunner, the corrosion program. They were talking about keeping the chains intact and stuff. I will scroll down here. Power plant. What was the Intrepid's engines? What did it run on or whatever?
So they run on bunker oil number 5, I think it's called.
Okay.
They give it it's like diesel in the sense that it's hard to get it to ignite. They actually have to kind of melt this stuff down a little bit to get it to burn.
Right.
But it burns slow. So
gotcha.
A huge amount of it will get the ship a pretty good distance. Just conventionally powered, not nuclear.
Right.
But that the burning of that is then going to feed basically the steam turbines that are actually kind of moving the ship.
Gotcha.
Right? And that's the same thing today. The nuclear power plant today provides the energy that runs that steam system. That
gotcha.
moves the ship.
Okay. Gotcha. So there was another question about that. How long can Intrepid stay at sea for a time?
That's a good question. I couldn't tell you how long would hold out with the fuel. That would
Right.
depend on how fast they're going and stuff. But the way that a ship like this is built, like during World War II, in theory they could be out there for the duration because they don't go home for supplies.
Right.
They're met up by a massive force. It's almost like we had 2 navies in World War II, 3 if you include the amphibious ships, right? We have the one that's doing the combat against enemy ships.
Right.
We have the massive amphibious force that lands guys ashore. Then we have a massive force, usually 3 of them operating at any given time, that were just carrying the oil, the bandages, the bullets,
The equipment,
bees,
yeah.
they had their own carriers. They had their own destroyers and cruisers protecting them.
Yep.
Planes flying around, escorting them to keep the Japanese submarines away. All of that just to get to the bigger fleet with all the logistical needs.
Gotcha.
So
that's a good question. It sort of comes down to the carrier was a city that could sort of operate itself, but it was supported by tons and tons, literally, I guess.
never meant to operate alone.
It
Always
wasn't
as
meant to
part of that
operate alone.
Unified system.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, even something so simple as, let's say you're on the destroyer and you have a toothache.
Right.
It gets bad, you need a root canal.
Right.
There's no dentist on the destroyer, it's too small. They bring you over here because the aircraft carrier for that entire force of ships has the larger medical facility.
Was like that doctor's
the
office.
dental program.
The dental program.
To be able to take care of that.
That's one of the things you can walk by down inside the ship. You can walk by the dentist office, I believe.
Well, you see the chair anyway.
Yeah, you see the
dental
chair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's this great article from the 50s where they explained that Intrepid had three painless dentists on board. They
Right.
don't feel a thing.
They don't feel a thing. Any story about the T-38?
Not too much.
Not too much?
It's chase plane for the space shuttle. I'm not too well versed in the space stuff.
Okay.
I've been told, I'm pretty sure that Sally Ride probably flew in that particular one.
In that
at least
specifically
once or
one?
twice.
Yeah, gotcha.
But that's one of my colleagues who's a big space guy that looked up that particular one's number.
Okay. Yeah, it says 913 on the back of it if you want to look up some information there, chat. They can do heart surgery and brain surgery on the carrier, apparently.
There's a guy who I remember reading the story about. It's kind of tragic. He had come back from Liberty, and he was a little inebriated.
Right.
And he fell about 2 decks, and he cracked his skull open.
Oh,
and
wow.
Basically, you remember, you have limited facilities here, but guys know what they're doing. They stabilized him. They did the basics of brain surgery, essentially, to try to get him stabilized enough to offload him and send him probably into, this is in Vietnam, probably into Subic.
Right.
Where we had a large, Philippines, where we had a larger naval hospital
Yeah,
for the
yeah,
rest
yeah.
of it. Fortunately, they never really found out what happened to him, but they had to be prepared for that.
Gotcha.
And then in between, they're taking guys' tonsils out. They're dealing with your hangnail.
The whole thing, like,
Anything.
yeah.
Best and worst of human circumstances, everything on board, including the hospital, has to be ready for.
Yeah, no kidding. Chat, hey, there's a lot of good questions here, but we have come to the end of our time with Mike. The good news is this is the second time Mike's been on the show. Hopefully we can get Mike back on the show
Absolutely.
again when
Anytime.
we come through. Every time we talk to you, we learn new stuff. It's always a fantastic experience, learning sort of deal. Chat, y'all know what to do. Tell Mike thank you for his time, taking just over an hour with us here today to walk us around Intrepid, walk us a couple places we haven't been before, like the Anchor train room and that sort of stuff. We'll come up with some cool new places we can check out next time.
See a little bit behind the scenes, perhaps.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll talk to some folks.
Good deal. Excellent. Well, Mike, thank you again so much.
Anytime. Always a pleasure.
Absolutely. So I'm going to awkwardly step around this way right quick, like this, and edit this and tell y'all, if you bring the camera back this way, what we're going to be waiting for here. Let's do that, like that. And like I said, we're not done right now, right? That was like super awkward, like walk around. We're not done. When we walk inside, we're going to check out a special exhibition that's here temporarily from the MIT Media Lab that's built around the Earthrise image. So that's what's coming up next. We're going to go to the donation screen real quick because we're able to come out here through the support not only of Intrepid, through their financial sort of support and getting us staff members who are really smart. I'm of course waving at Mike over here, right? But we're also able to come out here because of y'all's support. So when the donation screen comes up, we appreciate you. You're the reason we can be here. Give us about 5 or 10 minutes, then we'll be back with the MIT Media Lab for their Earthrise. After that, we've got Mike Massimino, the resident astronaut here at Intrepid, and then after that, we've got the NASA scientist from the LRO. So we are going to go to the Be Right Back screen. We will be right back. Give me 5-10 minutes to get the next thing lined up. Mike, again, thank you so much for the time here today.
Always a pleasure, sir.
We will see you again, but don't go anywhere, chat. Again, Intrepid Sea and Space Museum, New York City. It's the Apollo 50th anniversary. 50 years ago today, Apollo was now landed on the moon, getting ready to go out for their moonwalk, their little bunny hop bounce arounds. But I am going to switch you over to the donor screen, and when we come back, we'll be talking with the MIT Media Lab, if I can get over to the right place to actually do the scene switch. Okay, that worked.